This is the unknown secrets of internet marketing, your insider guide to the strategies top marketers use to crush the competition. Ready to unlock your business' full potential? Let's get started.
Howdy, welcome to another fun-filled episode of The Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. I am your host, Matt Bertram. I am also still remote, so apologies for anything that comes up. I would just ask if you do get value from this podcast or anything that we've done in the past, it's very important if you could share it, if you could like it, if you could engage with the content. We're going to be talking about LLMs today and kind of where search is going, and that is a big part of the new world and the new game that we're playing. And so I thought it would be great to bring another seasoned SEO on to get his perspective that's also in the trenches doing this work. So we can start to make sense of it all. There's a lot of new data coming up every day. So thank y'all for tuning in. Ross Barefoot, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, if you could just credentialize yourself a little bit. I know we were talking. You've been doing SEO since 2002, and I just didn't know if there were any other accolades you wanted me to highlight. You're just a staple in the industry.
Well, yeah, I've been around a long time. Of course, that can sometimes be as much a hindrance as an advantage. But we've seen lots of changes come and go. I started out as a web developer and programmer in about 1996, and then hung out my shingle in 2001 with a web development agency. Had a few employees, and immediately everybody who wanted a website started asking, well, how do I come up on these search engines? And at that time, people would ask me, what search engine do you use? And I'd say Google, and they'd say, what's that? So this is really prehistoric times, I'll tell you.
Well, I'll tell you, our founder, Chris Burris, that was the exact same story, right? Yeah. So we started off as eWeb style, became eWeb results, started doing the SEO, and he was the host and co-host of this podcast for a long time. I feel like, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. We always hear that.
Yep.
I'm hearing that, like, what is perplexity, right? Like, what, I mean, maybe people have heard of ChatGPT, but what is Grok? Or maybe I've heard of that now with some of the news, but I feel like there's a new cycle happening and everything's new. There's kind of new territory. There's like everything that I'm seeing is if you don't position yourself right now in these LLMs and in let's say 18 months, it's going to be 10x harder to position in them. And a lot of people are not paying attention to it. So I just feel like it's a new era of search. And I remember even when I would say the word SEO and people didn't really know what that was, but they're like, I know I need that. I feel the same thing with like AI and even LLM visibility or surfacing. I feel like that's, it's that the next chapter really, right?
Right, exactly. It's, as you say, history does repeat itself a little bit. What really strikes me is how some of the core fundamentals, if you've been doing, really high quality SEO, as you guys have, that some of the core fundamentals were obvious going back over a decade. I mean, we go back to 2011 when Google rolled out Panda and they gave us the guidelines, what constitutes quality content, and they had the list of questions. And they're still using the same list of questions, what constitutes quality content. Now, of course, that doesn't mean nothing has changed. It just means that there are some fundamentals that are really, really solid. And what I was starting to say in the green room was that up until recently, we've really considered reputation management as kind of a subset of SEO, of digital marketing, basically centered on reviews. I'm starting to change my own mental framing, and I'm thinking it's all reputation management. And SEO becomes a subset of that. Because what you need is, okay, what's your reputation? Not necessarily in the minds of the consumers, although ultimately, yes. But what's your reputation with these large language models? What are they going to say about you when people make the shift, not just to saying something like, foreign car repair near me, but instead they're saying, hey, I need a repair shop for my BMW. Who does that near me, and which one has the best reputation, and how do you compare them? And we're already getting into that now. And the LLMs, the one thing that I've noticed that kind of works in our favor at the moment, LLMs are gullible. So we can craft that narrative if we are paying attention, if we're trying to make our content, basically get into the sphere of what they decide on, which is then another discussion.
So yeah, let me speak to a couple of things
Sure.
that you said. First is like the EAT framework is a very solid framework. When they added that experience component to that, I think that was because you could synthesize a lot of the expertise through content generated by AI, and whether it be e-commerce or whether it be whatever you had experience with, if you are in a picture of it, right, you're proving that you have experience with it, and then you match that experience level. Okay, maybe you're not a doctor, but you've taken this product, or this product. Like it gets a little murky as far as your money, your life, and like those channels you go down. But the EAT framework is a fantastic framework, and I love what you're saying about the reputation management, because it's about brand equity. It's kind of spread out all across the internet. The LLMs are really like an intelligent human that's doing really in-depth research, and we just want to kind of shortcut it. And the shortcutting is the reviews of other people, right? I forget exactly what that term's called, but I agree with you. I think that there was a strategy for maybe overwhelming reviews to kind of push down bad reviews, or there was kind of tactics of reputation management. But now it's overall, what are people doing? What are people saying? And to kind of bring it into the conversation of where it's at right now, of what I'm seeing, is you were talking about the LLMs being gullible. And I think that's the predominant issue. I've talked to a couple buddies that have gone to kind of some smaller SEO conferences, and it's all about still tricking, like what's the next trick, right? Right. I mean, and so the thing that I see, though, the reason they're gullible is they've just been exposed to real-time data. Okay. They've been trained on data sets. And I've talked about this kind of, I don't know if it's a way to look at things. It's not really a framework or a thesis, but it's essentially, there's like a land grab, okay, that's happening. And why the land grab is happening today is because the LLMs aren't sure, right? And I have seen, I was at a conference where someone made up a fake city and kind of ranked the fake city as an example. And so, yeah, they are like, they only have the data that's fed to them, but over time, and they're looking at what users are doing and how users are interacting. So like that fake city or restaurant or whatever you want to say, if there's no engagement or it loses engagement, it'll lose favor. You know what I mean? Right. Like, so I think this gullibility component is really like the solidification of where these brands are going to sit in these LLMs. And they're going to kind of, it's going to be a repetitive loop where it's going to kind of lock them in as the trusted source. So if you're not in there to knock out those incumbents, just like the top 3 positions in Google, like I've run up clients to position 4, and it'll just stay there, right, for a certain period of time. And I don't know, that's kind of what I'm seeing, but I wanted to open it back up. I felt like you were getting into something really quickly with the globalness of the LLMs. And I think that's how a lot of people are looking at it in SEO today.
Yeah. And of course you can approach it from a mindset of just trying to game them. But, it was interesting because you touched on a number of these things. I listened to your conversation with Ray Gieselhuber, if I'm saying that correctly. I like to say it like a German. But it was interesting because, you talked a lot about still the role that search plays. And when it comes to that whole gullibility quotient, Google still, and I don't know for how much longer this is going to be, Google is still something of a gatekeeper. Because, you pose a prompt to any of the models, and what they're going to do is, if they can answer it quickly from training data, they're going to do that. But the training data is out of date, as you guys discussed. So typically they're looking at, and they're going to say, okay, is this prompt, does it require freshness? Kind of like in the old days, we had the query requires freshness, query requires diversity. And so they're going to say, does this require freshness, or does it require local knowledge, things like that? And increasingly, whatever logic they've been, conditioned with, whatever context they've been conditioned it with, they're going to go out and they're going to conduct a search, and they're going to do retrieval augmented generation. Well, when they do that, what are they doing? Basically, they're looking at 10 blue links, and they're basically the ones, they're ignoring everything else that would have been on the SERP if you were a human. But Google is the one responsible for moving those up in terms of relevance and authority. So if you're not in there, then LLMs are not even going to take a moment and evaluate you. I mean, theoretically, they could if you were in some other data set that they're looking at. But when it comes to their retrieval augmented generation, you're still going to have to pay attention to that.
So what I'm seeing, and I want to get your opinion on this, is so I think that as new data is surfacing, right, they're looking for the most current data. I've seen data that said the last 10 months is really kind of the cutoff, or like you could just say the last year for LLMs. But to your point, if you have deep expertise, it could be older if nothing has changed. But you're trying to surface that information, and I've seen a default from, we did this deal, like if we're talking ChatGPT with Bing, that it's shifted to more align with Google, which probably Google's search capabilities, well, we believe to be true. That's where most of the searches are, and that becomes the default this is the trusted source that we're referencing. But here's something interesting that I'm seeing even recently, and I wanted to get your opinion on this because this kind of dovetails into the reputation management. Now LLMs are going beyond that, right? So they're like, okay, this is the trusted source. Let's lean on this, and then let's develop our own opinions of things. And it starts to look at social links, which is starting to be incorporated, the reputation management, just how is your brand being mentioned, share of voice, all that. But this is what I'm seeing very recently. The data is suggesting that the things that are getting surfaced in LLMs are on average on the 10 blue links, 21 plus. So past page 2, right, that are not written to, tweak that search, that are really answering a question, or those long tail key phrases. Like I've seen some of these older blogs, some of these SEO blogs, for example, are getting bought up. Okay. But where you got the real, not like AI generated, but humans talking about issues, talking about problems, solving real things that are just buried in the SERPs, but it's real information and really helpful. Like I love going through those blogs and reading through them. Those are now the ones that are being surfaced in LLMs. So I feel like maybe LLMs are growing up. I don't know.
That's very interesting. I had not seen that data, and it conflicts with what my assumption had been. But I don't have any testing data to go on. And now that you say that, that does make a lot of sense, because I don't know if you've done this, but, as I guess a power searcher, when I'm trying to research a topic, often, the first few links are going to be so heavily optimized that, it depends on the query, of course. Sometimes I'll just drop to the bottom and I'll just dive into I'll click into page 3 or 4 or 5, because I figure it's going to be relevant, but not as heavily optimized. And so, like you say, maybe the LLMs are, being basically instructed to look for that kind of hidden authority. Sort of like what's the Google update, hidden gems update or whatever, where they're trying to surface stuff that's otherwise often overlooked.
Well, yeah, I think that's a lot of kind of plays into the deal with Reddit, right? And you see, okay, what are people talking about? What is relevant? And I'm seeing, okay, and then this is brand new, right? It's moving so quickly, right? And that's why I want to get your opinion on this. I can see that like social mentions are becoming as important as backlinks. Like I feel like they're kind of there's this turning point of, okay, here's all the information. Here's kind of the solidified authorities or entities that we're going to reference. And once those become solidified, to validate if they continue to stay in that authority position is, well, like comments. Okay. It's like, are people commenting on it? Are people talking about it? Are people reviewing it? Because that's the only way to measure if this person's saying this thing and this person's saying this thing. What's more socially relevant today is, well, how does everybody else feel about it? I feel the same way on social. If someone with a huge following posts something and somebody with not a huge following posts something, there are use cases if, you're using unique data and, people attach onto it. But I'm saying you post like what a day, or, like people just post something like that, or like, I didn't mean it for it to go this way, and they post the picture.
Yeah.
The person that has the social capital or equity gets the boost and the reshares and the, like I guess Gary Vaynerchuk is a perfect example. Like when he's just posting like, this or that, like there's this huge like outpouring of share following comments because people want to attach to that authority, and that becomes relevant versus somebody else maybe saying that. Again, I'm making inferences here because it's all brand new. I'm just trying to synthesize this data on how to best position brands for the long haul. And the craziest thing that I'm getting, we did quarterlies recently. A number of clients were like, LLMs are a small search, right? It's like 6%, it doubled like in the last year, but I'm not using them. Like optimizing in Google is great. And I go, okay, we can do that. But like there's a concept of this future proofing of if you don't position yourself right today, it's going to be 10x harder. Like, I don't know, in a year, 2 years when everybody jumps on this. And I don't know. I feel like there's there's an urgency in this that I don't think people are following. But look, you've been in this game a long time and you've seen these cycles, and there's probably a long tail on people getting involved in this. But I just project this out and go, okay, if agencies are doing the traditional things and LLMs are only showing 1 to 6 links, okay, and then those links, once they get established, stay there, right? And maybe the training data right now it will get to the point where it's updated continuously like Google, I'm sure of it. But for this period of time, there's reasons why the same things are going to keep showing up. And so it's going to be a lion's share of the traffic going to a few of the SERPs. And so if anybody is generating business online, like if you're in that bottom threshold of people that are laggards in this, you're going to die on the vine. Like that's just kind of my opinion. And I could be wrong. I'm curious.
Well, at least you'll die if you're depending on traffic, to be from Google search to be your primary revenue generator.
But most do, right? Most companies that I see when they come to us, they're spending an oversized portion of money on Google paid ads, right? Just AdWords, not display, not YouTube, just AdWords. And then maybe they're doing SEO, but they're usually doing heavy paid and a little bit of SEO, but not really committing to it. And maybe some remarketing on Facebook. Like that is like pretty much the standard deviation of what I've seen. Now, if it's B2B businesses, it's LinkedIn, but no one's taken this change seriously. Like, again,
you mean no one, when you say no one, you mean if like your clients.
Yeah. I'm saying of the clients coming in, all they're seeing, the big thing that I'm hearing is, well, my impressions are up maybe, right? My lead flows similar or down, but my traffic's way down.
Oh, yeah.
My traffic's down, and they're freaking out because we've trained them that that's a metric you need to look for, and also positioning, which there is a heavy correlation to where they rank. But I'm starting to see that shift. I'm starting to see like that decouple a little bit, and so my biggest thing is to explain to clients and people that are concerned about this, because there's some big brands and media companies. We've talked to some really huge companies recently that are like, what is going on? We don't understand it. And we need attribution. And I'm kind of like, ooh,
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And it's getting harder all the time for a variety of reasons. We have always reported traffic to our clients. We've tried, though, not to hang our hat on it. Normally we've tried to push them towards using, depending on the business model, but using conversions as their acid test. And ultimately, of course, I think we're drifting a little bit back to the days of Madison Avenue advertising, in the sense that you've got this budget and you spread it around and you advertise on TV and radio and magazines and newspapers, and then you hope your sales go up, because it's really hard. Like for example, I'm uncertain really what the percentage of search is from the LLMs, because often they don't pass referrer data when they send a click to a website. So the website doesn't know it's coming from an LLM. It's not in the HTTP. And so, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. I mean, if you go and you do an inspection on some of their links, it's basically sending that traffic as anonymized. And so and I don't know if they're doing that strategically or just because they don't care or what it is.
Well, there was a big upshoot about that, and probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. When this will be released, it will be a couple weeks beyond that. There is an option, and we've set that up in GA4, so you can start seeing more data than just anonymized brand data. And then we've been looking at log files, so we built a couple just hatched together tools to look at log files, so we just see what they're interested in. We don't necessarily know why. And I think that's the problem that the industry's trying to solve right now. But I think to your point is, if you do good branding, good marketing, build that reputation, okay, the LLMs are going to follow what good research looks like, right? So if you're on multiple platforms, and there's the 7-Eleven for like 7 hours of content, which we've seen LLMs really reference entities like podcasting's been really helpful, and high quality content to reach that. And then, you look at an engagement rates, they want to see a brand 11 times on 4 different channels, right? So if you use that framework, which was, I think 2003, right? 2003 from Google, what you should be doing. Like, again, it goes back to the basic principles. If you're doing good marketing,
right,
SEO shouldn't be meant to cut corners. But I think a lot of people look at it like, how do we get as much leverage as we can? But, you optimize bad content and it doesn't stick, right? Like you need really good original content.
Right. And
then you need to break through the noise, because since COVID, everybody's online now. That I saw a huge shift in paid ad campaigns not working as well. And we've fanned out to spread that out on other platforms to give them a little bit more love. But, you got to see your brand all over the place to break through that. So I think that is in line with what you're saying and what you're seeing as well. I mean, what are some other comparisons of what you're seeing in the framework of reputation management of traditional SEO, just like fundamentals that are working today? I'm curious. What are some other comparisons?
fundamentals, traditional SEO fundamentals that are working when it comes to getting visibility and the AI enhanced
Well,
search.
and just like ranking clients today, right? Like I think
Yeah.
that clients don't care if it's LLM or social media or, traditional SEO. They're just like, maybe leads are down or visibility's down or, rankings are down, whatever it is. I just need more business. Is this working or not? And I feel like we're going through this shift and there's a lot of like uncertainty. So I'm having a
Oh
lot
yeah.
more
Yeah.
conversations. I'm doing more webinars like with clients, because it just seems like there's a bifurcation that it has started. And we've really seen that with the drop in traffic to kind of signal, okay, I can't see what's working anymore. I'm assuming if we stay the course, we should be fine. But then there's a lot of people that are freaking out on, how do I bridge this gap? Am I doing everything right? And I've seen people start to pivot and want to launch like different campaigns, and they're not giving it enough time to set. So I'm just seeing how people are responding
Right.
to this be very interesting. Like I don't even have ICP target personas of who those people are, but I'm starting to see different buckets of when I talk to, we get a lot of inbounds, like what their problem is and what they're unhappy about. And I think that there's a lot of churn going on in the marketplace right now, and people are trying to find people that can figure it out. And it's kind of like, well, we're all trying to figure it out at the same time, and no one has like the answer, right?
Right. Right. Well, it's very difficult to answer the question because, as you indicated, things are moving so fast that it's hard to even pause and take a beat on anything. The one thing there's a couple of things though that seem to be fairly clear, and that is, we're getting a lot more visibility from big content. So about a year ago, we started pushing our clients towards more extensive content and to lean heavier on EEAT. And so as we've been helping them craft pieces and, or instead of like in the old days, make sure it's at least 200 words. Well, now we're wanting, 1,500 or 2,000 words, very, very heavily researched. We created strategically based on semantic topic research, which is basically what keyword research is nowadays, so that it fulfills some sort of need. Those pieces of content tend to perform much better. Plus, for our clients, we've been going through and we've been really aggressively trying to identify off-topic content, thin content, get it off the site. That sometimes is a challenge because sometimes clients, they just, they want to hold on to certain pieces of content for whatever reason, like for example, one of our customers is a regional bank. They've got about 40 branches. So they've got a lot of where they've, have where you
templated it out, huh?
Yeah, well, and it's all this meet the team stuff, where you visit somebody and look at their horses and what they do in their spare time. And so what we'll do is we'll identify stuff that maybe we can't remove, but we do no index it. And so we are trying to, and it has been useful and seems to be helping most clients, where we're paring down the less relevant content in order to kind of sculpt the relevance of the site more to what its mission is in the eyes of, Google or whatever, Google et al. The other thing is, for our e-commerce clients, it's to lean really heavily on Merchant Center, because it's still the areas where I see that are less impacted are local search and e-commerce search, just in the sense that, that data is more structured, but we make sure that we, always optimize their feed in Merchant Center differently than their pages in search. And that seems to be continuing to succeed in much more visibility and more clicks in Merchant Center, which is kind of undergirding the fact that for our e-commerce clients, their traffic is way down, but their sales are not. And there again, we see some of this. And one of the things we've been working to educate our clients on is that not all traffic is created equal. And in these days, you're losing a lot of crap traffic that you didn't need anyway.
Man, you hit on something that I haven't talked about a lot. I've been doing a lot of internal trainings on it, though. I need to kind of push those out publicly. There's kind of a lag time of training internally, teaching clients, and then pushing it out publicly. Pruning websites, right?
Right.
I think LLMs can sniff out templated content really quickly, and they're trying to identify, are you an authority entity in this geographic area? And if you're using templated content, that really hurts. Or if there's like outliers. And so there's some really interesting stuff where you can plug data in and you can get like a visual graph and you can show the clients, hey, this is an outlier. And this topic about horses is sending mixed signals. So we need to archive it or do that. Like we've found that like pruning, well, anything that gets unindexed is a big signal, right?
Yes, right.
That this is not relevant or helpful, and trying to force that back into getting indexed. It's really to ask the question, why is that happening, right? And so the concept of pruning, I kind of treat it like, let's make the website more aerodynamic with the edges. And, if we have like wind drag on rankings or whatever is going to be the future metric, we need to sharpen that. And if there's, if there's keywords that I see a lot of websites, that one of the first things we tend to do is, with a lot of clients, is make sure they're like indexed in the right category. Like sometimes Google doesn't understand what it is as an entity. And when those keywords fan out, it's all over the place. And so once you like get it into those grooves, and if you trim off that to kind of send the signals a little bit more, it starts to kind of move faster in that direction. It's a lot of like pushing a snowball down a hill. And if you decrease all the drag, it will start moving faster. I think that's a really good concept you brought up that I don't think a lot of people, and I see with clients, well, when we have like the menu structure conversation, the navigation structure conversation with bigger clients becomes quite challenging because you have different stakeholders and you're like, it comes, So I think, and then just really quickly on the e-commerce, I think you're dead on, right? E-commerce, I think Google's doubling down on, from what I've seen from their presentations, that's really where it's at. And local, we've been really focused on local because that's one thing we know we can control. They haven't updated that algorithm. We can impact that. And there's some crazy strategies that we've started to develop that are 100% like by Google guidelines, where we can get a lot bigger footprint. It takes some additional work to do, but that's one thing that hasn't changed. And I don't think it's going to change. I thought at one point that might go away, but geographically defining the entity from that kind of subset, G&B gives you the biggest trust of like, this is in a geographic area location, and those reviews and the frequency of those reviews are super important.
I think those profiles are important even when the business is not local, just because it's another foothold, because like we're seeing that with some of our B2B clients that are not geographically centered, that still we optimize their profile. I mean, we don't make it the main focus, but we make sure that is a touch point. And you can see information from the profile optimization coming up when you go to like ChatGPT and ask them, what can you tell me about this company? Which is great.
It references the reviews, right? Like
it'll reference the reviews. Sometimes they'll reference things that might be in services in Google Business Profile. And so I it's like, the whole thing with large language models and generative, AI and all this is just massive amounts of data. and they keep trying to scale that up. So we're thinking, and this is not empirical, but we're thinking it just basically intuitively, we want to give them as much relevant data as possible. So that means even though nobody ever clicks on a post in GBP, even though maybe they don't consult the frequently asked questions, even though maybe they don't read the description for the services, all of that is part of the data. So if it's done well and is on topic, my belief is that's, like you say, is positioning for the future. It's positioning to give a really rich kind of structure, not just a footprint, but a rich footprint to these models. And, we'll see. I hope it works. We'll know in a couple of years.
So let me ask you, when you're approaching a new client today, or you just get a consultation with a client and you're doing a discovery call with them, like, what are the things that you're looking for and that you feel are the biggest impact? I'm starting to create a survey here of what SEO experts think is most important, and then try to map that too with some data and overlay that. And I'm curious how you're looking at maybe like, what are the 5 things, if you will, that you are looking for or assessing when you're looking at a new client coming in?
Well, that's a good question. And it's actually, I have to, full transparency, I have not had an aggressive onboarding process or sales process because I've had so little churn, and I've tended to operate with a few large clients over a long period of time. But we are now, considering these same questions that you're talking about. And of course, over the years, we've onboarded a lot of clients, but we've never developed our own ICP, and I was thinking about this just this morning, because I was thinking, Guy, we work with, we've got a client that's a financial institution. We've got a client that's $100 million B2B in e-commerce. And then we've got a small ski shop in Aspen. I mean, very diverse. It's not like we have a niche that we really go after and that we do well with. And so I thought, my ideal client profile is mainly to talk to the client and find out if they're willing to communicate and to do any work on their own. So more than what business they're in, because this, it's now we're having to look at such a broader territory. It's been kicked around here, the whole search everywhere optimization, instead of search engine optimization. And although I'm not crazy about using that for the acronym, it is relatively true in the sense you've got so many touch points that unless the client is just willing to open up their wallet and say, take whatever you need, they're going to have to do some of it, whether it's maybe the social media or reputation augmentation, or, work on certain aspects of their website. So if we've got a client right now, it's our one Fortune 500 client. And I just wish I was in a position that I could fire them at the moment, because their revenue is nice, but they are so non-responsive that I realize, they're basically shooting themselves in the foot because they're so distracted and so non-responsive. So,
man, okay, you brought up something that I want to bring up, and I wish I had my pen in front of me, because I know something else you said where I want to take the conversation. I do want to also make
if only this was recorded.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So one of the things I definitely want to go back to is how you're viewing about reputation management, because I think that is the right way to think about things, not SEO. I can tell you that what I'm seeing, and I have case studies I need to publish on these things where a client is expanding and wants to expand too quickly and doesn't have the authority either geographically or in different verticals, right? So it's like we do a lot of oil and gas. And so people are like, oh, we're in medical, we're in agriculture, we want to do oil and gas, and let's just jump in and do it. And I'm like, okay. And I've even seen this, and I've been thinking about this. This is something that's been on my mind recently, is we work with clients because everything we get's inbound from all different industries. I was on a call with a publicly traded crypto company 2 days ago. But we, brought on some $100 million manufacturing and logistic companies because there's a bunch of stuff coming from Mexico. Like, we're all over the place, right? And I got healthcare companies calling me, and I'm like, I've wanted to dive down and specialize, right? And it's been hard when great clients come and the fundamentals of SEO are the same. And I go, okay, can I compete nationally with some very large companies in the SEO space? Like, right? Like, people can, there's a lot of consolidation. People are just throwing money at some of these keywords and AdWords. And I'm like, do I want to do that? And I see how the LLMs are going. I go, okay, where do I want to specialize? What do I want to specialize in? And then I have to be really, I'm thinking through how many different categories do I think I can own when you're looking at the LLMs? And I try to tell clients that. And I used to tell them, like, we had some financial centers in New York that were expanding across the United States. And they're like, we want to set up offices here, 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 here. And I go, based on your budget, on your budget, I don't think we can go after each one of them. And then sometimes, they'll lean on my account managers, we'll do it. And then I'll have to come in and we'll have to walk it back and say, we spread ourselves too thin. We've dropped in the rankings. Like, we need to focus, and we need new capital to go after this, if that's what you want to go after. And I'm seeing, again, that same story being applied potentially to the LLMs on the depth of expertise that are going to get surfaced when you look at that. And so I agree with you. Clients that don't communicate back to you. We have a couple clients that, big clients, they won't get back to us to approve the content. And so it's like there, it's sitting there, it's waiting, and we know we're going to get measured on performance. And it's like, hey, like, we're getting backed up here. Like, we need some time. Even like creating social, that's one of the big things I want to get your opinion on. Is we've just now started kind of an information architecture, social media strategy that we've opened up. Like, we wanted to just focus on maybe search engine marketing, paid ads, and SEO. And I just never saw social media as like, hey, other people can do that better than us, right? Like, that's a whole, that needs to be an agency in itself. I even carved off our videography component during COVID of that, because that kind of, no one would meet in person. And now I'm looking at that going, we need to bring all that back. That's probably now more important or equally as important. I feel like it's a 1-2 punch of attacking this market from the reputation standpoint. What is your opinion on that? Because it seems like social is part of the mix.
Well, it seems like you're like, I'm a mirror image of you, or you're a mirror image of me, because we've done the exact same thing. We've focused on SEO and paid search, and I have deliberately steered away from social media. Now, we'll do some social media work, but only if somebody puts a gun to our head.
And it's an existing client, right? It's not it's not a lead product or anything. Yeah.
And now I'm seeing that it's absolutely impossible to ignore social media. I mean, we've got to also, either we have to partner with somebody, or we have to, and right now I'm bringing on board somebody who's a seasoned social media person, particularly for one of the brands that I work with. And I'm telling them this is going to be a huge part of it going forward, because they're going to be looking at it. And then, but when you say social media, well, what are you saying? What
does that mean? Like, there's a couple.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So you've got this pretty broad landscape. I mean, it comes back to me over and over, and I hate saying this, coming from a small business background, but it just seems like to cover all these bases is going to require more budget. And it's probably going to be more the realm of larger companies that are also enlightened enough to see this is where they've got to be spending their money. But I think a lot of companies are not going to see that, or they're not going to see it until it's that 10x harder to get into, as you're talking about. So a big part of it is the communication and education of the client. And I can tell you guys do that sort of like us. But to do that, you've got to have a client who's willing to be educated.
Well, so I do coaching for a number of SEO companies and digital marketing companies. And what's interesting is, when I bring them on, I think it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to teach you all this SEO. It goes back to like most of the questions are client communication questions.
Yeah.
And I have to just share examples. Like I have 2 examples right now of where I know the way to not do stuff, right? Like I've learned the hard way. Here's something recently talking about the videos. A lead that we had on a drip came back, wanted a big video production for a conference that's coming up, I think in November. And I'm like, I don't have any video people in-house. I don't want to deter the focus of all this stuff that's going on with the LLMs. I don't want to project manage it, essentially, right? So she was like ready to go. This sounds good. I like it, everything, whatever. I gave her the referral to the person that did all her work that I had in-house. Email introduction, referral.
Right.
No, she didn't want it. She was like, oh my gosh, like now I have to start over. I wanted to go with you guys. I'm like, no, this is the person that where my whole department, like, so you don't like, I'm not going to mark it up, but she wanted me or my team to project manage it. And if I would have just done it as a subcontract, like a double margin thing, and just handed her to it, like under the brand, like gave him an email, it would have been fine. But because I referred it out, she totally lost it on me. And I was shocked by that personally.
Yeah. I mean, I can see why you're shocked, but it doesn't surprise me. I've been going through this thought process of what is my unique selling proposition. And it's not results and it's not activities. It's that when I'm in a call with clients, they trust me as the authority, and they've worked with me enough that they trust also my integrity. I'm not going to lie to them and so forth. So it's more about just who's in front of them.
Yeah.
So when you step away and suddenly you're no longer in front of them, it's like taking a blankie away from a little kid.
This is new to me, right? Like I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of stuff, but I'm still making mistakes. And this was probably a good size video project. They had quite a bit of budget. I even tried to kind of come back and like refer other people for them to look at, and I was just shocked. I was just shocked that the brand of who you are, they connect with you, they want to work with you. There's a lot to be said to that as we go back to the reputation, and they wanted my eyes on it. They wanted to pay me, made sure I was watching it. And
it's so tough though, because scaling, it's hard to scale yourself.
Well, okay. I'm just gonna this is what is it called? I'm going through therapy like live for everybody. Like I want to here's something else that I'm dealing with. So like other people that listen that are going through this thing, I'm going into a big meeting with one of our largest clients next week. Okay. And it's going to be like a half-day meeting, all the, different stakeholders, people that I kind of have talked to or known, and we're going to look at all their strategy. Okay. And the reality is they've been doing whatever they've been doing, which I'm under NDA. So I got to be a little cryptic. Sure. But I only have a couple clients I have NDA under, but this is one of them. But essentially they're spending a lot of money and they've been doing something for a long time. Okay. And it used to work, and it's not working on the paid, and it's not working on the SEO. They brought us in, like we've done the stuff. We've got them ranking in the top 2, 3 positions. Okay. 1, 2,
Mhm.
3 positions. We're getting them in the AI overviews. We're doing everything they asked us to do,
Mhm.
but it's not working like it used to. Okay. And so I'm having this conversation about the reputation, about the LLMs, but we're kind of going against the grain of saying, this is where it's going to go. I need it to work now. And so I'm preparing my presentation, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is one of the stressful things of my
Yeah.
job. I always get called in when it's not going right for an account. And it's not by any SEO. Like, I have testimonials. Like, this is great based on the data. I could build a bunch of case studies on this stuff, whatever. This is what I'm going in to say. This is what I'm leading with. Tell me, because I don't know. But they are much bigger than we are as an agency as far as like revenue and what they're doing. I'm spending, okay, on time, effort, like all this. Like if I like to treat our brand like a client and have our team treat it like that. So I have kind of cost of goods sold, and I kind of know what's going on. And we have a couple entities or brands that we're building. I'm spending 3 to 4x effort, okay, on them.
Mhm.
And like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, do you understand how important this is? And you've just upped your paid media budget. That's not working, but you're just blowing crazy X more than you're spending on SEO. And I'm just going to show you based on, our revenue and how much more I'm spending. And this is what I'm doing because I know that they trust me.
Mhm.
And so I just don't think people get it. That's just where I'm at right now. Is even like social media posts, I post stuff, very little engagement on stuff that's like frontier.
Right.
I feel like my crypto knowledge from 3 or 4 years ago, whatever, 2022, whatever the last cycle was, 21, I now have, when I'm in meetings, now people are asking me like how to move crypto from wallet to wallet. Like, I'll pay you to I'll get some friends together. You can train us. And I was like, I thought that like the tail on this thing, I thought that like that's common knowledge now 4 years later, or, even further back. And I'm going, now it's just starting to come to people's minds. So I think all this stuff we're talking about, only a few people are going to get it. And then,
Yeah.
in a couple of years, people are going to be like, oh, like that would be easier. And I don't know if it's 10x. I'm just saying it's going to be way harder once these LLMs solidify who they trust. And I think that it goes back to the pruning, that you need to get deep expertise in the areas that you want to own. And you've got to be really strategic about what you're going to do, because Google rolled out AI search. If these things continue to move, I don't know how long it will take, but I just think it's going to get a lot harder. And I think, to your point, these budgets are going to need to get much, much bigger. And what is that going to do for the small businesses? How are they going to be able to compete? Then that goes back to me. Well, okay, if you're an e-commerce brand, I think you're okay. I think if you're a local business, you can double down on local, and you're still going to win on that. That game hasn't changed. But I'm seeing a lot of national brands, or brands I haven't seen before, move into these local areas because their authority is so strong. And I've even starting to see spillover from regional brands internationally, right? Like, and it's just becoming it's going to be very competitive. I just see it's going to be very competitive.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, as the saying goes. And yes, it's very competitive. I agree with you. The majority won't get it, but when it comes to clients, businesses, let's say, even SEO agencies, a lot of them are not going to get it until it's too late. But when it comes to businesses and what we do, SEO, I think the majority of them have not got it all along.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. And so they sort of want to adopt the role of, here's some money, make things better. And that's the rare find. The company, and maybe this is why we've had so little churn, is because we've just lucked into the type of company that is busy working on their business. And once they've developed that trust, it's sort of like the LLMs. Once they've developed that trust, then they want to go and focus on something else and just basically let us. And when I try to explain to them, because I'm an over-explainer.
Me too.
So yeah, so I put together this great presentation, great, on AI enhanced search and how it's going to affect their business and so on and so forth. And
now I want to see it.
Yeah, so I'd be glad to share it. But and then I customize it for our biggest clients. One of the clients I put together, because this is the Fortune 500 company, they just won't they keep paying us, but they don't, engage. So I created a Loom video of the presentation and I sent it off to them and I reminded them. And I reminded, especially the key decision maker, who's the CMO, and never bothered to look at a 10-minute presentation. So what do you do with that level of non-engagement? Now, it's tough.
So again, I'm going to share one more thing just to let everybody know how transparent I am. We lost a 12-year client that left us before, came back, did some things, and then goes, okay, we need to use you. It was a family-owned business that we had to resell the kids that took over. Yeah. And there was this solid relationship there. And the two founders not founders, I guess. The kids that took over were married, had a kid. Okay. And we were sending them Loom videos, emails. We would respond to all their messages, but we used to have regular calls with them. Okay. Right. And we could see that they weren't watching the Loom videos. We were tracking what to do about it. We were sending them text. We were like, look at this information. We're trying to communicate something to you of what's going on. And it was kind of like a managed service. We've been working with them for so long. Called us up. Well, called me up. Hey, Matt, we need to talk to you. I said, all right. And they said, we're leaving. And I said, really? Why? We've been trying to get a hold of you. You haven't communicated with us in 6 months. And we've already hired another agency and all this kind of stuff. And we were like, I showed them all the things. They didn't watch any of the videos. Like, we were trying to get a hold of them. We couldn't get a hold of them. So then that opened up. Okay, we're debriefing. Why did we lose this client? What happened? Yeah. And we really were looking at the metrics, and we've determined. Okay, so again, this is like not an SEO thing, but this is like a client relationship thing.
Right, exactly.
We are now rolling out Slack for all clients on communication as the main channel, because we think people are getting death by email. And we're setting text triggers to make sure that they're getting the information, because it used to be email was the main form of communication, but we're not even convinced they're getting it. They're not watching the videos. And so that's like changing how we're doing everything. Like, I got an implementer, we're rolling it out, and we're going to say this is the main form, and now everybody can see that those client interactions. These are the kind of issues. It's not their ranking. Their rankings were through the roof. Like I was shocked that they were leaving after so long without even kind of like an escalation. And everything they asked us to do, rebuild, go after this, we did it all. But I think that communication in the eyes of the client and that relationship is so critical. And that doesn't have anything to do with SEO. No. But it has a lot to do with running an agency, and it has a lot to do with the time that we're in, that everybody's overloaded with information. And, my email.
This is my hobby horse, is the overwhelm, because I'm overwhelmed, but everybody's overwhelmed. And so the kind of the accumulation of all that overwhelm is just this type of miscommunication. I should say missed communication.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get their attention. I feel sometimes it's like in social media, I feel like, I'm trackside at the Indy 500 and there's somebody way up in the stands and I'm trying to scream and yell and get their attention. The noise is just too great. There are too many people, they're going to be lucky if they see me. And so, I don't have a solution for it. It's all I can do is I can commiserate that's part of the problem. This is again why for us, sometimes you got to take on clients because you got to pay the bills and you got to pay the staff and everything. But ideally, what to look for in a client is not their business model or where they're trying to compete or any of that. It's are they willing to communicate? And do they know when you talk to them? Do you get a feel for that? And they're practically worth a discounted rate to have somebody like that.
Oh, I hear you. I've also I've found that when I go meet them in person, and if the client's big enough, it will warrant that. If they're not local, makes a huge difference. And I've had a lot of clients tell me, "Oh, we're going to communicate. We're going to get back to you." Like, especially when we're like building a website, we're like, we need feedback.
Oh man, yeah.
And I feel like there's a project management cost that
there
is huge that eats into any kind of margin, and you have to consider that. We've started to do a new line item for that, which clients don't love, but I'm like, hey, like if they don't respond, like I have to add that.
Yeah.
Well,
I will be interested in hearing how Slack works out for you at some point in the future. This has gone by too fast.
No, I hear you. Well, let's start to bring it back and kind of wrap up with some viewpoints on how you are looking at the market from a reputation management standpoint, and then maybe some of the unknown secrets of internet marketing that you have been implementing and working for a number of years to share with people, maybe some best practices.
Yeah, I would say from the standpoint of reputation management is what we're looking at is, although the Google reviews is extremely important, we see them pulling in reviews from all sorts of platforms. So whereas, we had kind of given up on citation building as part of local SEO, we're now reviving that and looking at, okay, what alternative platforms can we work with? And also, how can we, use, because we use in our shop Bright Local for, trying to boost reviews. And so now it's coming back and saying, okay, how can we work with them in order to help them put in place a review outreach program, but then not have it exclusively focused on Google. And then also making sure that we make good use of the LLMs themselves when it comes to figuring out exactly what next steps are. Like with some of our clients, we'll go and we'll say, okay, who's a good, whatever it is, who's a good company in this area for this particular type of service, and our client won't be mentioned. And so we'll say, why did you not mention? And often they'll give you pretty specific information. Well, oh yes, they have a good reputation, and they'll describe the client and everything that they'll say. However, the reason we didn't mention them, and then they'll give it to you. And often, although you can't trust an LLM, obviously, but often they will give you stuff that as soon as you see it, you can say intuitively, oh yeah, that's true. We don't have as rich a variety, or we don't have as many positives. But then also to view reputation as not just a factor in reviews. Now, we have not implemented this because just of time, and it's so time consuming. But another place where they will get your reputation is, for example, Reddit is the big one. But then they'll look at discussions on other, they're looking at even at stuff like Quora that's pretty low quality. And so here again, it's either coaching the client or asking them for enough budget to be able to interact with all these various points of presence. So and then going back to the reputation side of things, to focus on content, and we're at the beginning edge of this, to focus on content that is very much, for example, client interviews that also would have a video embedded, that also would speak to, why did you have a good experience with our company? Because they're still looking at your website as an authority about you. So we can't just say, oh, let's ignore the website because they're looking at everything else. But that's what I mean when I say, and I think this is it's not really a secret, and nor is it unknown, but that the LLMs are pretty gullible. If you tell them about yourself in a way that is believable, and I don't advocate, of course, ever saying anything that's not true, but if you take your strong points, you look at them and you see that you've not been talking about those strong points on your website, you're depriving yourself of a very good reputation management source right there. And so that's a good starting point.
I love that. Now, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is super valuable to call out? And then, Ross, how do people find you, follow you, engage you in services? Like, what would you like to share? And we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well.
Sure. Someone who wants to contact me can just email me, Ross at EEP for Extreme Exposure Promotions, SEO.com. And that's the website address as well. I'm also active with searchengineacademy.com, which is the SEO training group. Haven't been as active with that lately because of the time, trying to keep up. And so the last thing that we didn't cover that is more of insider baseball, you like me probably get, I feel like I'm selling Jinzu knives. You like me get newsletters just every day full of content that you should be reading. And you may already do what I'm going to suggest here, but what I've taken to, because it's absolutely impossible for me to keep up with everything. So like, for example, I got Alita Solis's very fine newsletter. She's always got like 1,001 articles in there.
She's posting on LinkedIn like I can't even keep.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'll open often like 10 links from her email. I just add them all to NotebookLM. Are you using NotebookLM internally?
I have been playing around with it. We haven't put it into the workflow, no.
So I've got an extension on my Chrome browser that'll add in bulk tabs. And I can go down, tick all the tabs. I add them all into an area, and then I've shared this with each of my team. So you can just go and query across the sources. And you can do that with YouTube videos as well. And it's been very useful because what I'll do is I'll feed a bunch of newsletters in, and then I can go in once a week and I can say, what are the top level updates that you see in these newsletters in this date range? And it'll give me a really good list.
So Ross, you just gave me an idea, and I'm going to build a little tool. I've been taking this Harvard AI course, and I've been pulling a lot of things internally into kind of a LLM to synthesize data and to bring together all these different data sources. And I haven't thought about aggregating all these feeds and RSS feeds that I'm getting, and all these emails. Like I am overloaded with the amount of new information that's coming. And every time I open up any social media, I'm like, I got to save everything. Like it's too much. And I'm like,
it's anxiety inducing.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm like, I don't want to open it up because then I'll miss this. And I got to start, and I need to have a system to pull all that together. And I like what you're doing, and maybe we can have an offline discussion, but I'm going to build that into automation and then have it kind of synthesize that data to really aggregate. There was a newsletter when I was heavy on the sales side of things that I couldn't keep up with all the sports. And I think it was called Skinny something. I think it was for women. Actually, it was a newsletter that talked about all the sports, so you could have like surface level discussion on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right. And so I could at least have conversations with sports fans on sales calls. And so that was part of my routine every day when I was going to see accounts. I would know what's going on so I could talk about it. And I feel like that would be really helpful today. I think one of the most valuable things my team tells me is we have an internal SEO chat. And when I find things that are interesting, I like publish them in that. And that's definitely becomes like kind of inside baseball. I think people like the value of that. I think you're doing something similar. I think you have a better system though than I have. So awesome.
Well, yeah, that's my one hope for some way through this jungle that we've wandered into is, because getting a guide, that's tough,
I think that's the most important thing that I want to say and end on for everybody is most businesses feel like somebody internally just needs to be the person dedicated to keeping up to date with all this stuff and making sure it's being implemented. If it's not a inside person, a third party that you can go to. And I think the value in the strategy and in the information is worth it, right? Is worth it to know what you should be doing, what's valuable, what's not, because you only have so many resources, and if you line those up and point them in the right direction. And I think that today more than ever, because everything's new, that's something that people should be looking for and have that trusted source on who to follow. And then I would encourage other freelancers and agencies to become that person, right? But then it becomes a full-time job, synthesizing all that information and sharing it and building that audience set. So
yeah, even with tools and shortcuts, it's still a full-time job.
We are entering in a jungle, and I'm starting to see a lot of kind of collaboration happening where different people are doing different things, and there's just so much to cover that you got to be stay tuned. So I do appreciate everybody that's listening. I am actually trying to turn this into a dedicated team and a source, and we need to fund that. And one of the things that you can do is, follow and like and share is something you could do for free as established currency to help let us know what you want to hear about and what you want to focus on. And I am building a team, but we're not building any revenue off this. This is just kind of a community benefit and also a way for me to stay up to date with what's going on and connect with great people like yourself, Ross. So thank you so much for being on. Everybody, if you like this conversation, let us know. I'll be sharing all Ross's links in the show notes, and we'll be making some little clips and shorts for this. We are straddling YouTube right now, Best SEO Podcast, but we're moving over to Internet Marketing Secrets. So look for us there. I know a lot of you listen on iTunes and Spotify, so thank you. And until the next time, this is Matt Bertram. This is Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Enjoyed it, Ross.